have told us that we are live, and tonight, live from the Clatton Lecture Theatre, it's Strictly Come Lecturing. Okay, now unfortunately it's not Strictly Come Lecturing, it's a discussion about the technical design of your final year project, and or rather this is the title that JC posted on StudySpace. Actually, no, that's not what I'm going to do at all. Right? What I'm actually about doing is more about how to choose a platform in your final year project report. And actually, that's not what I'm going to do either. It's more about defending your platform. Okay? That fundamentally is what we're looking for in your final year project. Okay? And you need to be able to show that you project. And it's all about being able to justifiably choose a suite of tools, a suite of technologies, and technologies can take different forms depending on what your project is, and being able to demonstrate both that you know your own chosen platform, tools, whatever, but also that you know what else is out there and understand it, and understand the implications of your choices. And these are things we look for you to bring out in the pages of your report. These are things we are going to be marking you on and that you can earn marks for. Okay? And that's what today's session is all about. So we will talk about what I mean by a platform, what factors contribute to a choice of platform, how do you choose, and how do you present your choices in your document. And if you remember, when I last lectured to you, I talked about how a big component of what you get marks for is that document. Not the technical artifact, but the document itself. I said it before, it's about the journey. Okay? It's not about the actual end result, it's about the journey. Okay? Okay. So why is this important? Okay? Well, if you look at the various permutations of a final year project mark breakdown, okay, and this is the various bits of your report, and your report itself is worth 70, and it's 10 viva, 10 proposal, 10 progress, if I remember rightly. Yeah. Okay? But in the 70, that represents your actual project report. Okay? That's how it's broken down. And arguably, your technical design, your platform, the choices you make and the tale you tell about these things will cross-cut across these various elements of your final year project. So doing a good discussion about your platform, the technical design, defending your platform, whatever you want to call it, choosing your platform, there are lots of marks available in various bits of your project for doing this well. Okay? And once again, I've said this before, remember these marks are about the things in your final year report. The only marks you get for the application or artifact you create come second hand through the viva. Now actually, to be fair, there is a slight change to that this year. I am, for my sins, the moderator of the final year project module. So I'm not the module leader, I'm the kind of oversight, make sure it's not completely, utterly insane. And one of the things I have put in this year is a change to the assessment booklet that stipulates that the implementation, this section, so on design and build projects, is not just for the implementation written section of your document, but also encompasses some acknowledgement of the thing that you have either designed or built. Okay? So actually, That's not entirely true anymore, but do be aware that, broadly speaking, the way people will look at your implementation, the way they will assign their marks when they're filling in the mark sheet, will predominantly be based on what they perceive the implementation to be. Okay? And that will be informed by the Viva, but it will also be informed by what they've read in your reports of a technical nature, the technical design, the defence of the platforms and tools and technologies you have chosen. Okay? So the short version is basically that there's a lot of marks available for what I'm about to talk about, and there's marks available for doing it well. Okay? There isn't a section in the assessment called technical design or platform selection or anything, but it does cross-cut these sections of the report. Okay? Being able to justify the technologies you've chosen and demonstrate a knowledge of not only the technologies you use, but those you have chosen not to use, and being able to explain why you didn't use them, is a crucial aspect of your report. And chances are, it will come up at your Viva. If you don't talk about it in your report, then when you get Viva, chances are the examiners are going to say to you, either your supervisor or the second marker will say, well, you chose to use Wibbly Spang 7 for Windows. Why don't you use Flubble Wubble for Unix? And you'll need to be able to answer that question. If you've answered it in your report, you can refer them to the report. Hopefully they've already given you the marks accordingly. But this is a crucial part of you showing a knowledge of your field as computing professionals, in whatever discipline of computing it is you're doing. There's no rule against it. So no, use absolutely. Gideon asked, can you take your report into the Viva? Honestly, I've never seen anyone do it. Equally as honestly, I don't see any reason why you couldn't. It strikes me that Gideon having brought it up, it's eminently sensible. Actually, tell a lie, I have seen people whose presentation was basically to load their report and then go through and start reading selected bits of it. Wasn't much of a Viva. But anyway, I digress. So, when I talk about a platform, right, what do I mean by a platform? Well, it really does depend on your project, right? Depending on what your project is, a platform might be a development environment, a programming language, Java, C#, PHP, or it might be a framework for the particular programming language, such as Spring. Alright, I'm not escaping, just a bit noisy out there. Or jQuery. But then maybe you are not doing an out-and-out coding project. Maybe you are doing a design project and you're going to start using off-the-shelf things to build a prototype. So maybe what you're looking at is WordPress. Maybe you're looking at a particular database backend. I see a lot of projects every year that say, this project will use PHP and MySQL. Why? I mean, at the core of all this, that's what this is about. Why? Oh, because I didn't know there was anything else. Well, then you're not going to do very well on this part of the report. So it's important that even if you are choosing a platform, and it may well be, I'm choosing this platform because of my familiarity with it. I believe that the project can be completed because the developer, i.e. you, has a much better knowledge of platform X than platform Y, and it means that there won't be a learning curve, it's less risk for the project as a whole, and development cycles, iterations will be shorter. It's a perfectly defensible position. But what you need to be able to do is come up and understand the implications of that decision. Oh, well, you're not using, you've chosen .NET, for instance, or C#.NET. Well, what's the implications for that if your client tells you they've got a Unix server? These are the sort of things you're going to need to talk about. It will entirely depend on what your project is. If you're doing a design project, maybe you're going to make use of WordPress to create prototypes. Maybe you're into mobile application development. So you've made a choice to use Android. Why Android? Why not iOS? Why not a cross-platform development framework or tool? Okay? So any piece of technology that's the basic foundation, part of the basic foundations of your project, right, can be considered a platform. And when you make choices about what platforms you're going to use in your project, your report ideally should defend these. Okay? So we're not just talking about programming languages. It could be a programming language or an operating system or a library that extends a programming language or a development framework or a framework or a content management system like WordPress. Any one of these things. Or a set of tools for analysing data if you're doing a research project. Any of these things. Any a piece of technology upon which your project will rely on a foundational level. So why might you choose such a given platform? Someone give me a platform they're using for their final year project.
I'm using Java and Android Studio.
Using Java and Android Studio. I'll come back to Android Studio in a minute. Java. Okay. Why did you choose Java?
Because it's the basic language created by Google. If I wanted to use something like C# or C++, I'd have to use a NDK, which is a native development kit.
Why is that a bad thing?
Because
Why not use Xamarin? Isn't Xamarin awesome?
I've never used Xamarin before.
Okay.
There are alternatives like Lua, for instance, where I could use Corona SDK, and that's a cross-platform development environment.
Okay.
I've never learned Lua before.
Okay.
So that's one that we do.
So there's elements of familiarity coming into play there as your main justification. What I would say, based on what you've just told me, is you try and bone up a little more on some of the other alternatives. So the Xamarin point or PhoneGap, So if you're doing mobile application development, you've chosen a particular platform, and the obvious thing, if you're doing Android, to choose, Java and just write a native Android app, right? Or if you're doing iOS and you choose Objective-C or Swift, and you're just going to use Xcode and develop natively, the obvious thing you're going to get asked or expect to answer in your main report is, what about cross-platform environments? And you mentioned a couple there, but the big ones like PhoneGap and Xamarin are also worth investigating. Okay, and you'll be asked the sort of question you'll be asked. So you've just almost had a little mini Viva there to watch. All right. So note what happened there. I listened to what he said and I started asking questions about alternatives. So you kind of need to be aware of the alternatives and show your knowledge of a broad area. Okay. I'll come back to Android Studio a bit later. Anyone else? Why might you choose a platform?
Desire to learn.
Huh?
Desire to learn.
Desire to learn it? Is in a final year project viable? Yeah. So here's some thoughts. So you might choose a particular platform because it's the best, fastest, most popular in its class. I am using PHP because there's a wealth of resources out on the internet. I can get the support, blah, blah, blah. But be ready to back up these assertions with literature, okay? And when I say literature, I don't necessarily mean some dry academic paper, but that's lovely if you can get it. We like dry academic papers, right? What we actually expect is some authoritative source, right? So that can be from the vendors or a systematic test that maybe a test site did, a test website, a tech rather website. But the thing to do is whenever you say, I have chosen this because it's the best, and my own students will remember all this, right? My own project students know this very well. Imagine that whenever you say something is the best, pretend a little clone of me is sitting on your shoulder going, prove it! Okay? But ideally what you would do is look at the differing points of view. Because, I mean, here's an example here. PHP is faster than Java, right? If you look hard enough, you'll probably find a stat to back up that statement. If you look hard enough in a different direction, you'll probably find the stat that says Java is faster than PHP. You look hard enough, you can usually find something to back up any position. So ideally what you should do is look at differing points of view, evaluate them, and then come up with your own conclusions. Well, there was one test that said PHP was faster than Java, but this was flawed because the test that concluded that Java is faster than PHP was more systematic, and it was a superior test because. Okay? And then discuss in the context of your own project. PHP is slower than Java, but I have chosen, I'm aware of the implications of it being slower. I have chosen PHP because in the context of my own project, it's going to be faster for me to develop in PHP. A particular platform may be chosen because it offers features you need for your project. But by that token, if you're going to use that as a justification, make sure nothing else out there also has those features. So if something else has the same features, then expect your supervisor or second marker to ask, well, why don't you choose X, Y, Z instead? All right? So if something else out there has the features you need, you'll need to justify why you didn't choose it. You at least need to have an answer on hand, even if you don't talk about it in the report, which you should, but ideally you need an answer on hand for when in your Viva someone asks you. It is fundamentally about being technically knowledgeable about the decisions you make as part of your project. Okay? You might choose a platform because it's cross-platform. And for example, you might choose Java because you say, yeah, well, this runs on Windows and a Mac and a Unix box and blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's a worthy reason to choose the platform. Okay? But then that needs to make sense in the context of your project. If you say, I've chosen this because it's cross-platform, and there's no reason in your project for cross-platform usage, then it's worthless, and that will be picked apart. Alright? So you wouldn't say, I'm going to write my Android app in Java because it's cross-platform. That's something of a nonsense. If you're going for native Android applications, you've kind of got to write it in Java, really. And Android, by its very definition, although the Java language is predominant, its API isn't cross-platform at all. So if you're just writing a basic Android application using the in Android Studio using the basic tools that Google give for Android development, there's no point saying, oh, I chose Java because it's cross-platform. It's meaningless in the context of what you're doing. Or you might turn around and say, oh yes, I chose Java for my desktop application because it's cross-platform. And then earlier in your document, when you're talking about your client, you've mentioned they're an exclusive Windows shop. There's no need for cross-platform compatibility in that situation. So again, don't use justifications that don't apply in your case. Okay? You might choose a particular platform because it's cheap, free, or more readily available. Okay? Fine. But discuss the alternatives, discuss the implications of the alternatives. Alright? Here's a good example of, I think that was actually a quote from a well-written bit of prose in a final year project one year. MySQL will be used as a database backend because it is open source and consequently incurs no financial cost. In contrast, Oracle Standard Edition costs £11,068. Reference, because I'm sitting on your shoulder saying prove it, So if you say Oracle costs 11 grand, assume I'm saying I don't believe you, prove it. Okay? Oracle Standard Edition costs 11 grand reference for a single processor license. MS SQL's licensing model is so complicated it is impossible to determine how much a comparable license would be without going through a formal quotation process. Reference. So this person was railing against the complexity of Microsoft's licensing for MS SQL here. I don't believe them, so prove it. And I did have, it was an interesting read, that reference, as I recall. You might choose a platform because it goes well, it complements another bit of technology you're using. So, but make sure you can back up that assertion with references. I'm sitting on your shoulder saying prove it. Alright? But, if your justification for a technology, a platform, whatever, is that it works well with something else you're using, make sure it doesn't also work well with A, B, and C. So X works well with Y, and you choose X because it works well with Y, then, you know, use that as justification if it's relevant, and if it makes your choice defensible. But if there's a whole raft of other things that play nicely with your given technology, then that's not going to be much of a justification. Okay? Maybe a given platform is a non-functional requirement. What's a non-functional requirement? That's where the audience participates when I stop. What's a non-functional requirement? What's a functional requirement? What is the meaning of life? What's a non-functional? Come on, guys, you're third years.
It's on the board.
It's on the board. Well, it's implied on the board. Okay, it's on the board. What's a non-functional requirement? Give me an example of a non-functional requirement that isn't that one.
Speed.
Huh?
How fast
Time.
I want my application to load.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Give me an example of a functional requirement.
My application should load at night.
The user should be able to view their location on a map, perhaps.
Verb now.
Huh?
Verb now.
Verb noun, yeah. But yeah, non-functional requirement is some external requirement that's being imposed on the project, on the work, you know, from the outside. So it's not a feature, but a requirement, if you like. So the example there about, you know, time. The application must respond to user input within 5 seconds. Okay? Now maybe you'll get non-functional requirements that impose platforms on you. Your client is a Windows shop. They have Windows servers. They run Internet Information Server as their web server. So thus you have no choice if you're writing a web application for them but to use .NET. Okay? Perhaps they've been, or the flip side, the example up here. My client has specified the application must be written in Java. Right? But don't lie. I've had people before try and come up with a, well, I want to write it in Java, so I'm going to claim my clients told me to. Right? There is always a why. So if your clients told you to, I want you to delve into that why. Oh, well, they're a Java development house and their own programmers know Java, perhaps. Right? And they're going to maintain the application once the project is completed. I haven't even read that. That's exactly the example I've got up there. Maybe there is a, you know, an infrastructural requirement. They know that maybe there's a platform. You might choose a platform for certain efficiencies. Oh yes, well this particular platform has been proven to send less data over the internet than the other platform, and as this project is going to be reaching developing countries, we've chosen this. You know, it must respond within a specific time. Maybe, and this is the kind of weaker version of this, right? Your platform choice is implied by a non-functional requirement, right? My client uses Windows-based servers and currently hosts their website on an instance of IIS. Now, nothing stops you installing, Tomcat or Glassfish on their server. You can get those for Windows, and you can then write a Java web app if you want. But maybe they have specified that the solution should not require any additional software. But again, like I said on the previous slide, you should delve into the whys. Okay? Particularly if you're not genuinely doing a project for a client. Don't use this as a get out of jail free card. Because if you turn around and say to me during a Viva, and I'm setting a mark and you say to me, oh yes, the client told me to use Java, I'll say, oh okay, really? Tell me about the client. What do they do? Oh, it's my dad's shop. Why did your dad tell you to use Java? Oh, because he likes coffee. Right? Well, we'll get you on it. We want you to demonstrate knowledge, not be looking for cop-outs. Okay? And that's what I just literally said. And there's a good justification. Right? If based on the previous page, I said, okay, well yes, they've got IIS already, but nothing stops them installing Tomcat. Maybe you turn around and say, while it would be possible to install an alternate web server platform on Windows, it makes sense to use the platform that's already installed and in use. Perfectly sensible. Additionally, the developer, that would be you in this case, is familiar with C# and .NET, and this will help the required learning curve involved in the project, thus minimising risk. So you've defended your choice on two fronts there. Ooh, marky marks. Tick, tick, tick. I alluded to that on the previous slide about knowing a platform well. Okay? I said this early on. The developer is highly familiar with WibblySpang 7 for Windows. It's good at that. On its own, probably isn't enough. Okay? You also need to try and demonstrate that it's a defensible position if you got run over by a bus and someone with a different set of skills came along. So try and demonstrate that it's, cost effective, that it's a good fit for the job. Maybe it's not the best fit for the job, but it's quite close to being the best fit for the job, and in combination with other factors, overall it's a good choice. Okay? If you are choosing a particular platform based on your familiarity with it, and one of the things I would say is don't be afraid of learning something new. Who's going to have to learn something entirely new for their project? Gideon, put your hand up. Put your hand up, not wave your finger vaguely. All right? There's one, yeah, cut up there. What are you having to learn for your project?
Node.js.
You're learning Node.js. Why did you choose Node.js?
A lot of people shouting about that at the moment. It's getting more popular.
Okay, yeah.
Already done PHP,
So there's a learning choice there, and that's a perfectly acceptable. Although we try and get you to role play the real world on these things, they are academic projects. So a wish to learn about a new platform is a perfectly acceptable thing to do. Yeah. What impact is that going to have on the project?
It's going to add greater risk.
It is. But then the rewards are great as well, because you, on a personal level, can come out with a whole new platform. And you can then cite that on your CV. So, on a personal level, there's a lot to be gained. So, think about that when you're writing it up and you're defending your choice. Oh, am I that boring? Big Young comes from up there. So that's great. Anyone else? Yeah.
R.
Sorry?
Using R.
Oh, R. Oh, interesting choice. Why?
Statistical analysis project.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
The algorithm.
Right.
So mainly R.
Now, what other programming languages you know well?
I know well.
Or know better than you know R? Because we don't teach R, do we? So you must be learning it from relative scratch. So you've done Java before, obviously, and you've probably done any PHP? Yeah. So I imagine you would know Java and PHP better. So what does R give you that the others don't? I know the answer, but for the group at large?
There's a lot of the thing with Java and people that a lot of the solutions like yourself with R, there's bundles of packages that previous researchers and scientists have
For stats analysis, he means.
have created.
Mm-hmm.
In order to implement that package, and you can run it, and it can do what you want it to do.
Okay. And what you've got there is a good foundation for your justification for the platform. Yeah, absolutely. I imagine you could sit down and code in Java a lot of the stuff that you could do in R. I mean, and there's a lot of the actual code that are already out there, and there's stuff that's available for doing analysis in R. Yes, you could sit down and code in pretty much any language, but R is not. Also, bear in mind, R is designed as a statistical analysis language. It's raison d'etre, if you like. So don't underestimate that. It's but there are implications. You're not familiar with it. There's going to be a learning curve, and something I do want to draw out as well. I mean, on the basis of these guys, right? I mean, some of you may have already nailed your colours to a mast, as it were. Don't be afraid of choosing a new platform and learning it on the job. Okay? So, don't be just constrained, I'm going to do PHP because I know it. Right? I'm a bit afraid to try anything else. So, I think we like to see you stretching yourself out. So, when we see yet another PHP, MySQL, web application, even when they're good, we kind of tend to do a little bit, somewhere deep down inside of us goes, all right? You say you're doing R, and I end up as your second marker, and Node.js, bring them on. I'd love to be second marker on that and see what you come up with. So don't be afraid of going beyond this. I'm going to do what I know well. If you do that though, right, try to think about that. Right? What effect would it have on your project if you chose a different platform? If you chose a different platform, right? If you went through that learning curve, would it be worth it? It's clearly worth you going through the learning curve for R. Yeah? Node.js, interesting. Probably would be worth it. It's a nice platform. What stuff do you know already? You said PHP. C#, Java.
And a little bit of Java.
Right.
Done JavaScript.
Right. Well, but there's a book for you for Node.js. If you've done JavaScript, like conventional client-side JavaScript, then you're already familiar with the basic language. So you can make the argument, well, you're familiar with the JavaScript language. Node.js is JavaScript based. It's just shifting it, server side. You are drawing upon existing knowledge as well as stretching your, He's recording it, I think. So it's been recorded anyway. It's on YouTube. Yeah. Okay. And then remember, combinations are good as well. You know it well, and there are other considerations. This is one I made up. The developer is highly familiar with Wibbly-Spang 7 for Windows. While Niblick 6 is faster, reference, I'm sitting on your shoulder saying prove it. It is currently only available for Unix platforms. Prove it. As the client is currently a Windows server, it would involve migrating the target server. This would not be cost effective, blah blah blah. Additionally, the time required to learn an entirely new platform would adversely impact the project. Okay? So justify your choices and demonstrate you know the field. This paragraph here, they have not only demonstrated that they understand that Wibbly-Spang works on Windows, They know there's another thing that exists and it's faster, but it's only available for Unix. They're showcasing their knowledge. So even though they haven't used all of these things, they're showing to the examiner that they know stuff. And there's all marks to be accrued for this. Okay. Here are some examples of previous submissions I've had. Okay? And what I think we will do, let's quickly see how many of these I've got for time planning. Okay, not that many. All right. Okay. Here is an example of, and that was it. That was the extent of their discussion of their platform, of their technical review. All right. The platform that has been chosen to be used. I hope no one's retaking, and this is theirs. Does anyone recognise this? Would anyone admit to it if they did? Okay. The platform that has been chosen to be used to create and host a system will be WAN. This has chosen to be the platform because it's easy to use and simple to understand. It also includes a software tool called PHPMyAdmin that uses PHP to create databases, one of which can be created to be used for the system. The platform can use PHP, HTML and CSS coding in order to display the pages that can easily be connected to each other in the database. It is a great platform, especially for users who haven't used a web development platform before. Good, bad or indifferent?
That's very bad.
That's very
Not
bad. Right.
justify anything. Like, why is it easy for people who haven't web developed before? Does that mean that my 14-year-old brother could web develop using one?
Yeah, okay. Up top there, what was you saying?
Me.
You were saying something? Oh, okay, someone must have been throwing their voice there. Oh, absolutely, perfectly correct. What else? Think about what it tells us about the person's technical knowledge, or lack thereof. Come on, be brutal, but they're not here.
Research alternatives.
Haven't researched alternatives. Alternatives to what? What is WAN?
If you change two letters, it sounds like.
Louder, louder.
Windows, Apache, MySQL.
Right, exactly. So WAMP isn't a platform at all. It's just a convenient bundling of a variety of tools. Right? What he should really be talking about is his choices of Apache, maybe to a lesser extent, but certainly MySQL and PHP. He doesn't even understand what the platforms are involved in his work, or her work, I don't know, maybe it was a girl, I can't remember. You know, and as you were saying over there, it's, you know, they've not justified anything, probably because they don't understand anything. All right? It is really a paragraph that says nothing. Okay? And if he did expand that out, you know, I am going to use Apache, MySQL, and PHP. This is readily available in a single bundle for Windows servers in a product called WAMP. Right? You know, that shows some understanding of what these things are. Okay? One of the biggest warnings I can give you is if you are writing, if you don't truly understand something, don't try and blag it. Alright? So if you find yourself writing a sentence down and you don't truly understand what it is you're saying, maybe you shouldn't write that sentence down. Maybe you shouldn't include it in your project. Ideally, what you should do is go back and study more until you do understand it. But, you know, so when you're finding stuff online and you're going, okay, I'm going to use that, I'm going to rephrase it because I don't want to get done for plagiarism. But if you don't understand what it is you're writing in your document, then don't write it. Okay. this one. Several tools that can be used in order to create a web application. However, it has decided to only choose the main tools that have produced the application both efficiently and effectively. One of the first tools chosen was Easy PHP Dev Server. Blah, blah, blah. Downloading and installing it involved installed a complete WAMP environment. WAMP is an acronym for explanation thereof. The second tool that was downloaded was Notepad++. This will be used to write both the PHP, HTML and CSS code for the Regatta application in order for the WAMP environment to understand and produce a system. Good, bad or indifferent? Indifferent. Why? Anyone think it's good? Anyone think it's bad?
It has an explanation of what the acronyms and what that is, but it's not as much that detail, I guess.
Yeah, good. I mean, in terms of demonstrating they understand what these things are and what they do, it's a bit better than the previous one, right? But there's no justification for any of it, really. You know, why MySQL? Why not Oracle? Why not MS SQL? Why PHP at all? I mean, he hasn't really drawn out his choice of language and web scripting environment at all. PHP kind of is implied there, but he doesn't outright say, oh, well, I've chosen PHP in the first place because. Okay? How about this last bit? Come on, my guys should be able to respond on this. This last bit here. The second tool that was downloaded is Notepad++. We don't care about that any more than we care. It'd be like you writing, one of the crucial tools for this project will be Microsoft Word so that I can write this document. We don't care. We're interested in the platforms, the fundamental foundations upon which you will build your project. Alright? So, don't put in your project, you know, Notepad++, NetBeans is a crucial tool. You know, any more than you would put Word. Star UML. We don't care that you're using Star UML to produce your UML diagrams. We care that you're doing UML diagrams and you're doing it well. We don't care what tool you're using. Oh, and by the way, right, Star UML is a program. UML is a modeling language, and that's what you get taught. You don't get taught Star UML. It'd be like saying, yeah, I speak Microsoft Word. No, you don't. You speak English. You use Microsoft Word to write English. Okay? Okie doke. How about that? Try to avoid just shopping lists of technologies, okay, that tell us nothing, right? And there's a good example of Star UML. We don't care. MC PowerPoint, isn't he a rapper? Stop, collaborate and present. So yeah, don't do that. Don't just give us a shopping list of stuff. Talk about why. Right? That entire top stuff, probably not relevant. Although some of you who are doing design projects may talk about things like Photoshop and prototyping tools. Okay? So if you're doing a design project and you're not planning to, you know, it's about the design. Maybe you're drawing heavily on UX theory. Maybe that's going to be the meat of your project. So in that scenario, you know, a particular prototyping tool, you know, maybe you look at Azure versus Balsamiq and you discuss the advantages and disadvantages of both. If you're doing a design project, maybe that's appropriate in those cases. But I'm going to use PowerPoint for, you know, to present the wireframes. Yeah, it's weak. That shopping list of technologies needs to be justified. You need to discuss the alternatives. Okay. How about this one? I won't read it out. You cast your eyes on it and see what you think. Actually, I will read it out because for those people at the back may not be able to see it. Okay. There are available and various tools to help the system to build from scratch or simply customise a dynamic website and create dynamic contents. I'm not quite sure about the English, but this web form was built from scratch but with the help of some powerful tools. The tools that we use for this project are as followed. PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. PHP is known as a server-side scripting language premeditated for web development with the purpose of building general programming language mostly used for developing dynamic web applications or contents. Reasons for choosing PHP: simple than the rest of programming language, it is cross-platform and therefore it can be used across different operating systems. It is popular, can easily be embedded in HTML, and most hosting service sites have PHP set up and ready to use. Reference. What do you think of that? Don't worry about the grammar quirks as such, but what about the content? Good, bad, indifferent?
Good.
I'd still say indifferent bordering on good. Right? They have made an attempt to justify PHP. Right? There are some unjustified assertions there. Simpler than the rest of programming languages. That's open to debate. Who thinks PHP is simpler than Java? No one. But that kind of justifies my point there. In a poll of about 50 third-year undergraduate students, none of them said PHP was simpler. Paul Neve, 2016. There you go, there's a free reference for you. Huh? Simpler. Simpler exists. How about this bit about HTML5? HTML5, blah, 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 is this, that, the other. We chose this version of HTML, so they're saying HTML5 versus anything else. It's dynamic, easy accessibility, supports video and audio directly on the browser, meaning no flash. In case the client wants to add functions to upload video in the future, it would not be a problem. HTML5 can be used to develop cross-platform mobile applications. Good, bad, indifferent. That last bit. He's kind of making faces at it.
He doesn't really go into any detail as to why he's picked HTML5 over any of the others.
I mean, he kind of, I would say the video and audio aspect could be a good hook, but I do know for a fact this project had nothing to do with video or audio. So this is an example of a bit of a gratuitous, yeah, fling that in there, not relevant, but fling that in there. So try to avoid that. It's got to be contextually relevant. Okay? Okay. This was a subset of a technology review. That belongs to someone sitting in this room. I won't name shame. In recent years, from a study conducted from 2012 to 2014, the number of tablets, let's say, that could be my typo, has increased from 22% to 55%, showing that tablets are becoming a more popular device. Reference. Android will be used, so this person chose Android for their project, for several reasons. Several Android devices, including both phones and tablets, are available for use to the project, allowing for ample testing opportunities as well as further possibilities from the application being ported to phone form factor. Android standards, which include the programming languages Android is built upon, are more familiar to the person doing the project, which means that potential obstacles are more predictable. Blah, blah, blah. Additional experimentation of Android has built a familiarity and experience with the language. One can also argue that due to the lack of resources on other tablet devices, such as iOS or Windows, they're talking about in the context of this particular project, Android is a more feasible option. Ends on a good note. Finally, Android has the highest adoption percentage out of other operating systems. So what do they do well here? What do they do badly here?
They've shown they've done some research
Mm-hmm.
on what they're using, and some on others as well.
In some what size?
Some on other things, like they have mentioned iOS.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this project was always going to be an Android project, right? It was Android was partly chosen for learning reasons, but generally, you know. But what they've done well is they've, you know, defended the decision that was basically a fait accompli. It was Android or no project really, but they haven't just said I'm going to use Android because that's what I like, and I've got an Android phone, and it's nice. They've actually discussed other platforms. They've made a justification that, well, look, actually, Android is a bigger platform than iOS. Those numbers are even. Did you? I think those numbers are a lot bigger now. I was about to inadvertently give away whose document this was. And I fear the person involved has just given himself away. Okay. Now this is a bit of a non-techie one. This is a design person who wasn't going to be doing coding. They were going to look to modify existing software or use it in a particular way in a context to create a prototype. So a design project. At this stage, it became necessary to evaluate the various forum software solutions that are available. As the project is being conducted with a low budget, it was decided that the best solution that didn't affect the budget would be open source software. Research was carried to compile a list of 4 well-known open source software forum software packages. These are various software packages. Extensive comparisons of the usability, security, compatibility and technical support of each forum software was carried out using a comparison tool on a forum review website, and the comparison tables can be found in Appendix A. As a result of the comparison made, we chose PHP BB3. Was the easiest to use, was most compatible with databases and smartphones, had a larger technical support community. Although Vanilla Forums was the most secure and boasted more technical features and third-party application integration, PHP BB is one of the oldest and most widely used open source software. Has been around for long, widely used, can be expected that most of the issues an online community will encounter have already been resolved. New issues that may arise should be easily resolved due to the wealth of support that already exists. CMS chose Joomla. Analysis shows that Drupal is the best out of the 3 due to it being the most stable, scalable and powerful. Has a steeper learning curve than Joomla and more difficult to edit the templates to get a customised look. WordPress is the easiest to use, but is more tailored towards blogging and providing the facilities for a social network. And this project was social network oriented. Joomla has its own learning curve. Joomla was seen as the best starting point considering the skills and resources available. Remembering that they also put a lot of stuff into an appendix as well.
Question.
Yeah,
Where's the evidence of that?
in the appendix.
Oh,
But you're quite right. Where are their references in some of these assertions?
okay.
Okay.
Should at least reference to the appendix, which I don't even see.
No, I mean that's fine. So they're comparisons of usability, security, compatibility. Each form something was carried out, you know. So that putting it in Appendix A is fine. Where it falls down is, as you rightly say, there's no references here. Okay.
I believe you told me every paragraph has got at least 4.
No, they're not necessarily, not gratuitously, right? What I'm saying is I think you might have misunderstood me what I said there. What I said was if you reference something once, and then you discuss it subsequently in the same paragraph, you don't need to keep going reference. That gets old. When you leave the paragraph, generally speaking, you would need to re-reference if you're bringing the same source back into play. Okay? But no, this has got a very good discussion going on here. It's weak on referencing, even though one might argue, well, he does a lot of this in his appendix, right? But the general level of discussion is good. He concedes that his chosen platforms are not necessarily the best in every way, but they are best for him. And it wasn't him. They are best for him, and he explains why. And they do a pretty decent job here. And like I say, this was a non-techie project. This wasn't development. This was using existing blogging and CMS solutions and forum packages to create a particular. It was a social network for a particular demographic. I won't go into the specifics. And they weren't a coder. They weren't an out-and-out, I live and breathe code. It was a design project. They did a good job on this, as I recall. And that was not a bad attempt at a technical review. Oh, there we go. There's a table. Oh, no, this was about platforms, I recall. So, the table below is an analysis of various tools to utilise based on previous experience. Okay? So this person chose to do part of their review through a table, okay? A grid. Dividing it into various categories, okay? How would you think about this? Would this be a good approach to use?
I think if it's a report, and if it's an academic report, you really need to show a good style of writing. So, anybody can do a table. If you're a third year undergrad, you should be really showing some skills.
This wasn't all he did. It's just a subset. I think the reason I've got this is, this on its own wouldn't be sufficient. You're quite right. Okay, but that can be a good. Something like that can be a good starting point for discussion. So along with prose that draws conclusions out of that, possibly it could be a good strategy. The thing that I would criticise there is, as always, prove it. And something, what do they mean by CMS? Content management system, but which content management system? Okay? But tabular presentation can sometimes be a good approach, yeah.
Would you allow it so if you have that, then when you're in discussions, put all the references in there, would you want the references in the paper?
It depends which comes first. Okay? Strictly speaking, if you make an assertion, you should reference it. Otherwise, the whole, cite your sources comes into play. You would probably get away with it, because, if you were using Harvard, the table would get messy very fast. If you're using Vancouver, then you probably wouldn't do too much damage to the table. So you could make an argument that as long as, these assertions are referenced, if you're doing it as a table for style reasons, maybe you don't put the references in. But then maybe if you are using Harvard, maybe you reconsider whether you should present it as a table in that situation, if that starts becoming a factor. Realistically, the first time you bring in an assertion, there should be a reference for anything that's in doubt, that's questionable. So Sphinx, popularity among Python projects, right? I don't believe you. For all we know, only one Python project's ever used it. So a reference to say, I don't know, something on GitHub where a large number of projects have the hash, have the tag Sphinx, would be a way of backing up that assertion. But if you could actually, ultimately, it's a presentational thing. What I don't mind about that is they compress quite a bit of information into a small amount of space, but it would need more work. It's a style choice. This is continued from the previous page, later in the document. Okay, and I'm going to read one bit of it. So object-oriented programming, they were trying to justify a choice of language based on what they were trying to deliver. This was actually a set of courseware to teach programming. A kind of mini noob lab almost, which is why I ended up supervising it. Right? And they were trying to determine what language they were going to use, what language they were going to teach within the environment. So they were trying to justify their choice of Python. And they said, object-oriented programming is relevant to current trends. However, the project target audience is foundation level students. May not be prepared for the complexity that an object-first approach would deliver. So, as a result, they're going to use Python because it can be used in a variety of ways, but is object-oriented, and they have a reference accordingly. Okay? Now that bit I think they did quite well. Okay? They justify their choice with some quite advanced theory. The thing I would criticise about that paragraph, and this is easily done, because AQ, you kind of alluded to it earlier on. There's a perception that we expect flowery academic prose. Alright? We don't. We expect someone who can read and understand. Okay? I'd rather simple English if it makes good points than, 87 years ago, thou doth chose a platform, and really try to, wrap it up in flowery language. I remember a project a few years ago, and the guy was a native French speaker, and the prose was being charitable Frenglish, to the extent I couldn't understand what he was actually saying. And I knew he'd done a lot of work, and I knew he'd done a lot of research, and I was soul searching on how to mark it, and I was concerned what the second marker would say. The second marker was JC. So after he'd read it, I said, "What did you think of it?" And he went, "I thought it was great."
All right.
Fortunately, JC could understand the Frenglish. The French twisted, French skewed English, so English with French grammar and construction was perfectly understandable to JC. But what this student did, he would have come across had it been a different second marker. What he did, what his mistake was he was rather than just trying to concentrate on making his points simply and staying within the confines of his, English composition capabilities, he was trying to sound like academic papers he'd read. He was trying to do something, to be something that he wasn't. Clarity is king. Okay? It's far more important that we understand what you're writing than we're impressed by the construction of the writing. We want content, not flowery prose. Okay? And that's something that this guy here, I think, was on the borderline of crossing over into the wrong, onto the wrong side of the fence. Okay. This is from a contents page. Framework and language analysis. Various language stroke platforms. Justification. And technology review, language. And then two particular pertinent technologies in this context, and they did a versus comparison. Okay, so they first looked at the basic foundational platforms. Do we use C#, PHP, JSP, count with justification, and then having chosen one of these, they chose C#. Right. Drilling down a particular subset, they then evaluated that, which of those to use. This was quite well, this was very well ordered. Okay? So this is something you can also learn from. Look at a variety of options, right? Wrap it up, And then if as a result of making that choice, that leads to you making other choices, just take the story forward. Remember, your project is a story. It has a beginning, middle and an end, but equally the sections within your story themselves have a beginning, middle and end. Your chapters have a beginning, middle and an end. So don't think of your project as various bits. I've got to do a list review, and I've got to do a design, and I've got to do an implementation section, I've got to do a requirements analysis. It's telling a story. Okay. This was some of the content from that section. PHP gives some stats about it being heavily used. PHP has security flaws. Gives some stats about that. JSP, who it's developed by, uses Java, requires a certain server type. Justification. I chose to implement this product using C#, as over the past few years there have been an increase in development on large-scale products, and it is my opinion that C# is more suited to this than PHP or JSP. Furthermore, combining net applications, which includes ASP.NET, makes those applications faster over PHP. As PHP is more of a scripting language instead of being compiled, it is interpreted language, meaning each line of code is executed line by line by the interpreter, inherently slower than the compiled language such as C#. Aside from the performance aspect, the IDE Visual Studio includes cool things, I'm paraphrasing now. Autocode complete. Debugging is useful, step over a line of code, while the IDE provides information on each variable. Chose to use ASP.NET working in conjunction with C#, using MVC. I feel MVC is more suited to my needs over other architectures due to MVC's separation of concerns and its stateless approach to development, while also providing me with a working knowledge base of the ASP.NET framework, which I believe will provide a solid foundation for my desired career as a .NET developer. Quite a lot to assimilate there, and I've paraphrased some of it because it was quite long. What do they do well? What's good about that, what I've just said? Their reasoning is quite good. Okay. And they certainly show a general, if I go back, they show a general understanding of the field. Okay. What do they do badly? Huh? Sorry? First person. I do not appear in this dojo. Okay? The first person, my, is a no-no in any academic piece of work. Okay? There's no justification, there's no reason why you should need to do it. You know, how would I rephrase that? I chose to implement this project using C#. The choice to implement this product using C# was made because over the past few years there has been an increase in development. Right? The choice to utilise this method of implementation was driven by this architecture. It is more suited to the needs of this project over other architectures. It will also provide a working knowledge base of the Microsoft ASP.NET framework, which will provide a solid foundation for a future career as a .NET developer. You can avoid using the first person, okay? Sometimes it's hard. This person here is clearly reflecting upon their future, their possible future. They're looking to use this project as a launch point for a future, okay? So that's when it can get hard to avoid the first person, but it can be done. What do they do badly? What else do they do badly? There's not much in the way of referencing in here. So they show a knowledge of the area, they show knowledge of the field, but again, you know, if I go back, you know, you know, lots of my opinion, right? .NET is faster than PHP. You'd want a reference there. Increasingly, interpreted languages are becoming almost as fast as compiled. There's things like just-in-time compilation, you know, so the actual traditional differences between compiled and interpreted languages are getting more and more blurred. So this isn't always necessarily true. You know, something is faster than something else because something else is compiled or interpreted. So if you're going to make a position that X is faster than Y, you need hard facts. Okay? And also, this is weak. If they are saying, I'm going to choose .NET because Visual Studio is good, and Visual Studio is good because it provides auto-code complete, well, so does NetBeans, so does Eclipse, so does pretty much every IDE ever these days. Okay? So again, what they're doing here is they're being a bit selective. I suspect actually what was really going on here is they know Visual Studio well, and rather than say they don't want to learn a new IDE, they're actually trying to find the things they like about Visual Studio, not knowing that virtually everything else does it. So they're giving away some ignorance there. They're betraying some ignorance of their own knowledge of IDEs there. And a picky second marker would drive a bus through it. Okay. So things to think about. A platform takes many forms. Okay? You all use them in your projects, though. There will be a platform somewhere in your project. You know, and maybe it's a stats tool. Maybe it's WordPress, a content management system. Maybe you are dealing in programming languages and frameworks and It's not that bad, is it? But you need to be able to delve into the why. We will expect the why. Why did you use PHP? Why did you use MySQL? All right? Lots of reasons as to why you might choose these things. But we want you to draw them out. And like I say, imagine I'm sitting on your shoulder saying, prove it. Whenever you say something, the sky is, you know, I chose blue because most people like blue. Prove it. I don't believe you. So draw in the theory. Alright?
Do you expect some students to, based on what they find of the technology, just do you expect them to sort of change what they originally had intended to do?
It's happened. It's happened. As a result of people doing their technology review, right, they've then gone back on what they anticipated. Bearing in mind that, you know, strictly speaking, you should be knee-deep in lit reviews at the moment, and none of you have really done much in the way of requirements analysis. So, and you know, there is also an argument that until you've done your requirements analysis, maybe you shouldn't be doing a technology review yet. Maybe you need to wait until you know what your requirements are going to be before you can genuinely choose your technologies. You know, if after your requirements you discover that all your users are expecting to be able to use it on their phones, maybe your choice for doing a web app becomes redundant, and you're not talking about PHP or .NET, .NET web stuff or JSP. Suddenly you're talking about questions of iOS or Android or Xamarin or PhoneGap. So the timing of your technology review can vary. But yes, certainly, Gideon, as a result of your tech review, people have actually gone, yeah, I'm going to do this and something else. I've discovered something useful. Oh, I didn't know you could use Xamarin to actually access GPS coordinates. Maybe I'll use that. Or I didn't realise PhoneGap was JavaScript based. I know JavaScript, I'll use that rather than learning a whole new platform. It's really about showing that you've done your due diligence when it comes to choosing your technologies. And maybe maybe after having done your due diligence, you say, well, you know what? I'm not going to choose the best option. I'm going to choose a different option because. We want because. There's reasons, within your project why you are going to buck a trend. Then explain why you're bucking a trend. Know what you're talking about. Don't be Mr. Wham. I'm going to use Wham. I don't really know what it is, but that's what I'm using. Alright? And if you don't know what you're talking about, go and read up until you do know what you're talking about. Alright? And the sources that you read while getting to that point will be important sources. So reference them, cite them when it comes to making your case. Also, don't just include filler content, right? If you're putting something in because you think we're expecting it, don't put it in. Unless it's useful, don't put it in. If you haven't got anything to say, don't say anything. Better to say nothing than to say something ill-informed as well. Okay? Understand how the things hang together. So what are the relationships? Okay? How does Java relate to Android, for instance? How does Android change Java? So for example, the way in which Android uses Java makes Java's cross-platform nature completely irrelevant. If you are saying I'm writing an Android app and I'm going to use Java because it's cross-platform, that sentence is a nonsense. Now, it's not important that necessarily all of you know why, but someone who knows the field would know if you wrote that you didn't know what you were talking about. So like I said in the previous slide, if you're not quite sure about something, don't say it. Or go away and read until you are sure. And there might be dependencies. If you're using ABC, you might need X, Y, Z as well. So understand how these things hang together. Understand your problem, okay? You can't speak with authority about a suitable technology if you don't understand the details of the problem. So maybe some of your non-functional requirements are going to be technical, right? So if your client has said to you, we want an app that runs on an iPhone, you probably aren't going to write it in Java. You need to know, if you are writing an app for an iPhone, you should know why Java's a bad bet. So ultimately, it's about making sure you know the platforms well enough so you don't say anything that's inherently contradictory. Okay? There's always exceptions to these things. There's lots of frameworks and platforms that let you do things odd on a technical level. Hence my little caveats down there. But okay, I'm not going to do this because I am conscious that you've got your course rep here, and this was from last year anyway. I sneaked on a bit of a quick debugging session on the end last year because I was asked to. You guys have made no such request of me, so I won't subject you to it. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go away. And I am going to hand over to your rep. And Cecil B. DeMille up the back now should probably bid our wonderful remote viewers a tender goodbye. And I will leave you to the tender mercies of your course rep. So you can